Hey, what's up everyone? It is me, Big Tony, and today I've decided to actually talk about the current state of Maplestory, and more specifically GMS and the current new age changes that are going on. I've seen a lot of different takes recently on like what's happening with new age and Nexon trying to hide some evil scummy shit, and yeah, so I basically just wanted to go over that real quick and just inform you guys a little bit on what's going on. So I'm going to start with something that affects all the servers, the new Soul Erda energy cap that you can get per day. So for those who don't know, Soul Erda is a new resource needed for 6 job. Monsters and bosses both drop Soul Erda energy, and you can convert 1000 Soul Erda energy into 1 Soul Erda, which you need to level up your skills and unlock them in your Hexa Matrix. So how it works, basically you are capped for 400 energy from the monster kills every day, and the daily quest gives you 600 for a total of 1 soul Erda per day. But for some reason, Nexon decided that it was a good idea to just completely limit you. Like once you get that 1 soul Erda, you're done. You have no more for the rest of the day, which means that from just doing the dailies, it would take you 720 days just to max out your current Hexa Matrix, not including the new skills that KMS is currently developing and that are probably gonna come out every 6 months or so. If you include the soul order that you gain from bossing, it shortens it a bit, but it depends on how far you boss. Like, let's say for example me, I do up to C10E, that's an extra 600 soul order energy per week, which it's not gonna bring it down by much, honestly. So if we compare this to how it is in KMS right now, while they do not have the daily quest that we have, their Soul Erda acquisition is much better. Like from what I've seen from streamers and from sheets that compile data, it's not a 100% clear like number because every test depends on their drop rate, their kill rate, and shit like that, and it's all random. But consistently, I've seen that most players with like a decent drop rate and a high kill rate, they get around on average one whole soul Erda per hour, and it can deviate from like all the way down to 0.7 or all the way up to 1.5, or some lucky assholes even got like 2 in 1 hour. But that means that without counting the daily, in KMS they would surpass our current daily limit of 400 Soul Erda energy from monsters in less than 30 minutes of grinding. That's just doing your dailies and maybe an extra 5 or 10 minutes of grinding and you reach our current cap, which is like nothing. Now, some people might not think that this is that big of a deal, because this would just mean that you can steadily progress with everyone by just doing your dailies, and everyone's just like on equal footing, no one's ahead of everyone if everyone does their dailies, which on paper it sounds not too bad, but there's a lot of things that you have to consider with that, because when you add a daily limit to shit like this, you're creating more FOMO. Like you're making it so people feel the need to log in more often, and if they don't, they feel like they're missing out on too much shit, which is already the case with arcane dailies and sacred dailies. So I feel like adding something else to that is not really a good idea, personally. Especially when you consider the fact that with how this works, every day that you miss, like let's say you're sick or you're busy at work or you can't log in for that day or whatever, every day that you miss, you will permanently be behind by 1 day compared to every other player who didn't miss a day. And you can never catch that day up. You are permanently behind just by missing 1 day, compared to, for example, if you didn't have the cap, like, oh, okay, you missed 1 day, it's not that big of a deal because you can just make it up with like the next few days when you have more time off. Like take for example a casual player who's busy during the week because obviously he has a job, or he's studying or school shit or responsibilities, whatever. But he has a lot of time during the weekends, and that's usually when he plays Maplestory. Well, without the cap, sure, like he can't grind during the week, but he can more than make up for those hours during the weekend when he actually has time. But with a cap, every week that specific player will be permanently behind 5 days compared to everyone else, and he will take exponentially more time to max out his Hexa Matrix if this cap stays. Another argument that I've seen pop up on Maple Discord, Maple Reddit, and some people like Smegging, they're happy because this prevents like the Giga Sweatlords from just like whopping 10 whops a day and gapping everyone in terms of Hexa Matrix. Well, when yes, that's true, but I feel like that's also how it's supposed to be. Like if you grind more, yeah, you deserve to be stronger. You deserve to have more shit than people that don't grind. Like that's nothing new when it comes to MMO progression. Like I just don't see how that would make much sense. Like why would you want to limit your own progression just so you can keep up with the players who obviously grind a lot more than you do? Like they should be stronger than you because what a surprise, they grind more. I don't know, I feel like that's a stupid argument. But to me, the biggest issue about this is the fact that Nexon didn't even want us to find out. Like the only reason we found out was because someone fumbled the bag in test server and accidentally showed us that there was a cap, and thankfully they did, because I couldn't imagine waking up on patch day, on 6 job day I mean, and like having this horrible surprise, especially right after Black Friday, where obviously I would have spent some shit. Which actually makes me think that maybe Nexon wanted to keep it a secret just so people would still spend on Black Friday? Maybe squeeze in some extra money at like last minute before shit hit the fan? I don't know. This could have been like a test server only thing, and maybe that's why they didn't want test server people to show it, but I highly doubt it. But while this can easily be resolved by just not letting the changes go through the live servers, our trust in Nexon, which is already pretty thin, might never recover after this fiasco. Oh, and also they allegedly nerfed the white jade ring box that drops from Black Mage and Heart 7 and above, but to me I feel like that's just a typo. They just copied and pasted the 1 out of 4 from the other 2 boxes. That's what I think, at least. Alright, let's talk about more bad reboot stuff, which includes the reboot EXP nerf and the reboot Meso Shop, and the Meso Shop in general. Alright, to start this off, I believe that the reboot EXP nerf makes sense from a KMS perspective. They successfully aligned both servers EXP wise and monster HP wise. However, this does not really translate well into GMS because Rec server has Frenzy, and they always had better rates than us ever since we lost Frenzy on reboot. So I feel like that's a change that maybe shouldn't have made it to GMS, but you know, Nexon works in mysterious ways. And I know that they are nerfing Frenzy with instance maps, but that's noted to be temporary. Well, hopefully it's temporary. In the test server it showed that after February the grandest maps are back to being normal, but they said that in KMS also, but that turned out to be permanent, so I'm not sure about that. But I'll talk more about Frenzy later. And the Meso Shop is still way overpriced in GMS, especially in reboot. Like, who thought that 750 mil for a singular Black Flame was a good idea? And why is the Fairy Heart still 4 bill? Like, they never really fully explained it, unless I'm misremembering, but that shit makes no sense. And moving on to the next topic, I'm gonna talk about rec servers. And before all you reboot players skip ahead, we need to move past this shitty agenda that us reboot players and us rec server players have against each other, because at the end of the day we're still playing the same game. Like, we shouldn't be at each other's throats. We should be like rooting for the best changes for each other's servers instead of rooting for each other's downfall. That's just stupid. And also, full disclaimer, I am speaking as a reboot player. Now, there's a lot to unpack here, so I'm just gonna list off the things that I'll talk about. I'll talk about the Frenzy Totem and instance maps, the fragments being untradeable, and the nerfed event shop rewards. And if I missed anything, please let me know, because like since I'm a reboot player, I'm not 100% knowledgeable with what goes on in rec servers, you know, so just let me know. Alright, so starting with Frenzy Totem and Fragments. So in New Age, Frenzy service will no longer work on grandest maps because we are getting the instance maps, which means that every player, well, up to 2 players, you see your own mobs, like you cannot interact with each other's monsters. And Frenzy has a history of not working well with these maps. You can't Frenzy service other people, but allegedly you can Frenzy yourself. But I heard that that's like half as efficient, but I'm not sure, so I'm not gonna like take this with a grain of salt because I am not knowledgeable on that. That's just what I heard from other people. And this, especially paired with the fragments being untradeable, is a huge hit to the rec server market, because in KMS, buying and selling fragments was a huge part of Six Shop for a lot of people, because players, they made bank by just farming fragments and selling that shit, and other players like the whales, or even like non-whales, like when you would cap on Soul Eater, you would just buy fragments to like keep up, you know, because if rec server can't buy fragments, then they're just Soul Eater gated just like Reboot. Oh, but I guess it doesn't matter if we have the stupid daily cap, but I'm talking like without the daily cap in mind, like just Six Shop in general, how it was supposed to be like designed by KMS. These changes, I feel like, again, it's really easy to fix if Nexon wanted it. They could either A, make Frenzy boost the spawns for every instance in that map, just like Firestarter Ring, so they have the technology. B, make half the channels instance instead of all of them. That way, if you want your instance maps, and you don't want to buy Frenzy service, you go to your instance maps. And if you do want your Frenzy service, you go to the non-instance maps. Or C, just don't introduce instance maps to rec server, because rec server isn't as popular as Reboot, sadly, so I don't think they'll have that issue. Which, again, I might be wrong, since I don't play rec that much, so I'm just going off what my rec server friends are saying. But from what they're saying, rec isn't as popular, so they don't really need the instance maps. But again, take it with a grain of salt, because I'm not sure if it's true or not, and it depends on if you're on Bara, Aurora, or whatever. Now, nerfed event rewards. This one, I don't understand what Nexon was thinking. Like, it's so small, but it's so simple. Like, why would you make ICOGs in the event shop 60% instead of 100%? And why would you not have white cubes in your shop? Like, that's just a simple copy paste. I don't like, why would you nerf us even more? Stuff like this keeps happening in GMS, and we barely get any communication on Nexon's end. And I think as a community, we need to push back more against Nexon instead of like fighting against each other. This like Reboot versus reg server players, like you're all playing into Nexon's hands. You're being mad at each other instead of being mad at the person causing your issues, which is in this case Nexon. And this happens every single time. They release something that nerfs one server, people start fighting it against each other instead of, you know, fighting for each other instead of against each other, you know? But I guess that's just how it is. Anyways, my closing statements are, if you feel like speaking out against these changes, I will put 2 links in the description. One of them will lead to a Maple forum where you can vote and comment like your thoughts on like these changes getting reverted, and another one, as you know, stupid as it may sound, it will lead to a petition website. But I feel like literally anything could help us at this point. Just one vote or one petition or whatever, just to get our voices out there. Maybe with enough votes, Nexon will realize that there's a big outrage. Well, they already know that there's a big outrage, but the more votes or the more people's opinions out there, the more complaints, the better, honestly. So I'll just leave those in the description for you guys. And if anyone made it to the whole video of me yapping, thanks for watching, and have a nice day. And also shout out Triple Point. Peace.